All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Billy's Pit, the legendary Billy Minimal. What's going on, brother?
Not a thing, Jamie.
Not a thing. All right,
But still,
Billy.
still, still recovering from that fiasco down at the Arnold Classic where I walked about 45 miles.
As you see right now as we speak, here's the video footage of Billy himself making the trek from the parking lot to the Arnold Classic. Bill, you think you're going to be okay after that run?
I'm gonna have to get some kind of a leg transplant or something.
With us this month, we have Joe Ceklovsky, 148 pounder, 600-pound bencher. Bill, what do you think of that, man? Awesome bench.
Less than me.
Yes, he keeps bringing that up. But Joe, what's going on, man? How are you today?
Hey, how you doing, guys? Doing good.
Great team. We got a chance to spend some time with Joe down at the Arnold, and Billy is very resentful because Joe could bench as much as Billy, and he's about 3 times lighter than Bill. You know, there's a lot of hating going on, Joe. I know, but you're going to have just to bear with
I'll try to pull through. I mean, I could feel the evil stares from across the room, and he actually pushed me a few times.
He did.
I don't know if anybody caught that. Yeah.
Oh my God, you're lucky you didn't put some salt and pepper on you and eat you.
Yeah.
Right. Listen, hey, Joe. Listen. The first thing we're going to talk about is your bench technique. Tell us what your bar path is. I know at Westside they teach you to go straight lines. I know Metal Militia kind of teaches you to push back over your head. What is your feeling on your bar path, where you like to touch the bar, your hand spacing? Give us a little bit about your technique on the bench itself.
Okay. As far as bar spacing, I know everybody tries to go as wide as possible. And through a combination of the fact that I'm a smaller guy, and just feeling comfortable with the bar, I've tried to go, pointer fingers out on the rings. I actually feel stronger with my hands in closer. I don't quite do a close grip, but I put actually ring finger on the ring itself.
Wow.
And that's for me. For someone of bigger size, that's pretty close. But for me, that's where I'm most comfortable. I've tried every grip variation as far as where I put my hands on the bar. I feel like I get the best results with a closer grip. As far as bar pass, it'd be similar to more similar to Metal Militia. But what I like to do is, I know a lot of guys with shirts. What they'll do as soon as they get the bar in their hands and they start bringing it to their chest, they'll immediately pull their elbows in, fighting against the resistance of the shirt. I prefer to load the shirt as much as possible. I try to put as much tension on the shirt on the way down, so you get as much benefit as you can on the way back up. And I would say it would be more of like a J shape as my bar pass. So I'll go elbows out like the old bodybuilding style bench. Force my elbows out, come down as straight as possible until the shirt actually stops the bar, and at that point, then I turn my elbows in slightly. I bring it down low, probably lower stomach area, and then the reverse on the way back up. So it is kind of a push back. And I guess the theory is it's kind of like doing pin presses, or like Billy, I know you said you've done pin presses, but with chains.
Right.
And I like doing those also because you can almost practice that shirt groove without having the shirt on. It's the same thing. I'll throw it back towards me and then post my elbows out, open them up towards the end. So it's almost a 2-part bench stroke. So off your chest, the shirt is giving you the push, and then 3/4 of the way up, I post my elbows up, and then to finish it, it's like a pin press.
Right.
So I try to take advantage of
that technique is actually very similar. When Jamie interviewed Jason Coker, and he's a big believer in that same thing of coming down without tucking your elbows as long as possible, and then tucking them once that shirt starts binding up. Do you feel that helps you touch easier, or you just feel that that's just a better way to load the shirt?
Yeah, I don't. The touch, I don't think it helps with touch. I mean, obviously, it takes some getting used to, because I feel doing that it forces you to touch lower because you are loading the shirt up that much more. But I feel you get full benefit of the shirt by really torquing it that way. I mean, you're sort of fighting your elbow. Your elbows almost want to go in because of the support of the shirt,
right,
and you're almost fighting against that on the way down. But I feel that you get a lot better results out of the shirt. You get more of the shirt by loading it that way.
What shirt do you wear? Do you wear a Rage X or what one are you in?
I wear the Inzer Super Phenom.
Okay, you're in a Phenom. Okay. Now, how about leg drive? Now, I know a lot of guys like really tucking the big thing now is to tuck your feet way behind you and so you can get that arch. Do you believe in that, or do you believe in holding your feet out a little bit? Where do you place your feet?
I like to tuck them. I don't tuck them back as far as most. What we try to do is this: as far as a setup, I'll set up on the bench, pull my feet back, try to touch my heels to the ground, but I want to be tucked enough that I can't physically get my heels to touch.
Right.
So I constantly have that pressure. And the other thing I'll try to do is I'll get into my tuck, and then physically try to lift my butt off the pad. But obviously I want to be in a locked up, a tucked enough position that I can't physically move my butt off.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you that. So what you're saying is actually on an official bench, like say a Forza or whatever, official bench, they're using it to meet. You're saying that you actually would have a hard time bringing your butt off the bench with your, just with your, stature.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's still possible, but I have short legs, so
right.
it's a little hard. Once I get into a tuck position, a nice tight position where I try to drive my traps into the pad and arch my back, and I can it's kind of a more of a feel thing. I know that I'm pushing. I constantly want to be pushing down on my heels, but I want to be tucked enough that my heels can't touch the floor.
You don't need to put anything under your feet to touch.
No. Actually, that's what I was gonna mention next. I don't. I've tried it in the past, and I just don't like it. I think I'm so used to. My legs are at full extension. I don't have much room to pick my ass off the bench, and I've tried using plates or wooden platforms under my feet, and it actually throws my setup off. It actually then allows me to, with my leg drive, allows me to get my ass off the bench. So yeah, I don't use anything under my feet.
Right. Now let's talk about the mental aspect. A 148-pound man who's benching 600 pounds. Obviously, you progress to a 600-pound bench. It's not like you just wake up one day and you're benching 600. But
right.
When do you start to believe that a bench like that is possible? I mean, do you just start? You get the 400, then the 450, 500, and it just becomes that way? Or, I mean, because that is a lot of weight, and you are. I mean, we walk around the Arnold, and you have a light frame on top of everything else. It's not like you have the, you just happen to be short with, big joints or something.
Right, I'm a small guy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so how did you get to the belief system that you would be able to get to those kind of numbers?
It's a great question. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a combination of things. I think one is of course the natural progression. Obviously you guys know, you set these goals in your head, whether it's in training or in competition, and obviously as you achieve those, your confidence builds throughout it. But I think a lot of it was when I first started lifting. I hadn't really lifted at all, and I went with a friend of mine who'd been lifting for quite some time, and the first time in the gym, I was keeping up with him on the bench. It just sort of seemed like a natural fit to me. So there was some confidence built in that. And then, like I said, the natural progression of setting a goal, 300, 400, 500, and being able to attain those, that also picks up the confidence. But I think at some point it was more people saying that it couldn't be done. And the mental aspect is huge in the fact that, you have to respect the weight, but you can't be afraid of it at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You get under that weight, and it is a lot of weight, and obviously everybody knows a lot of things can go wrong, but it's almost you got to shut that part out and just think about pressing the weight. And like I said, how this all came about was the first article that I ever got for Powerlifting USA. The guy that was interviewing me, he said, perfect world scenario, and I wasn't anywhere near 600 pounds. Perfect world scenario. What would your ultimate goal be in powerlifting? At that time, Marcus Schick had just done 4 times body weight at the Arnold, and I said, well, ultimate goal, real, didn't think it was attainable at all. I said, I'd love to be able to bench 4 times my body weight. Well, somehow in the translation that got switched around, and that became the headline of the article. Joe Ceklovsky's 4 times body weight bench press plan, and then he put, like the opening line was, this is his routine plan. He'll soon bench 4 times body. Well, you know how it is. You get on the internet and people always got something to say, and then it became, who the hell's this guy? Was he nuts? And it was almost that, a lot of that drive was proving people wrong.
Right.
That it could.
I know it, brother. Yeah, right.
And the thing for me, being a smaller guy, I guess I always liked the fact that I always wanted to push the envelope. I always wanted to be you do the flight system at meets, the heavier weights go last, and I always wanted to be with those guys that were all going last. You know what I mean? I sort of took pride in the fact that almost I was representing for the smaller guys,
Right.
that it is possible, and I always wanted to push more.
Right. Now, your 600 bench, I mean, it's anyone who wants to see, I'm sure Jamie will have a video of it on the interview, was really one of the cleaner world record benches that I've seen. I mean, it was held, and it was locked out, and it was held, and it was put into the rack. I mean, it was a really, really nice, clean lift. That's got to make you feel sort of proud that there really was no chance for the haters to get on the internet and say what a bunch of crap, or bad judging, blah blah blah. Do you work a lot on your technique that way as well to make sure that the lift is done without question, or is that ever enter your mind, or is that just part of your system in general?
Yeah, no, it's definitely part of my training, and it's funny that you talk about that. At the time that I did 600, I'm sure you guys remember there was quite a few big lifts that had happened around that time, and it was immediate. Everybody was tearing them apart. Everybody. I mean, they're all over the place. People were saying, well, this, soft handoffs were the big thing at that point. Everybody was calling soft handoffs, and that was part of it. That I wanted to be able to. And yes, I do take pride in that the lift was done and there wasn't one negative comment about it. But that does come from the training. If I'm training for me, or pretty much any time at all, every rep that I do in the gym is done exactly how it would be done on the platform. And I think that's a big advantage of our sport, whether you do bench only or a free lift meet. You have the advantage of practicing the exact motion that you're going to do in competition. Well, you can't do that in other sports. Football teams, they run certain plays, and in practice they'll run the way, but you can't guarantee that someone on the other line is going to react exactly how it's written down in the book. So I think that's the advantage. So every rep that I do in my shirt, whether it's warm-ups or if it's a max effort, are all done with a handoff, press command, and a rack command. And I train it that way, that I always wanted to show command of the weight, so when I get the weight in my hands, it actually helps me. I know a lot of guys want to get the weight in their hands, they want to get it going. But for me, I prefer to hold it at lockout when I get it for a handoff and just sort of prepare myself, and then obviously to hold it at the top once you're done to show command of the weight. So yeah, it's definitely part of my training.
Well, it would almost seem that somebody, the smaller stature like yourself, where you're handling so much weight over your body weight, that it would be imperative to actually control the weight like that. Because for you, like a super heavyweight who comes out of the groove a little bit with a weight, they might be able to muscle up a little bit, just use some of that manpower, body power to muscle it up. With yourself, there's probably just no room for that, where everything has to be perfect all the time, just because of the fact that, the numbers you're handling, it's such a light body weight that, anything that you do that might be a little bit out of the groove might just, totally, literally rip you off the bench.
Yeah, oh, definitely. I mean, technique for me, you're right. I can't get away with some of the things that maybe some other big guys can. And technique for me it has to be right on. With the shirts, you have a small space to touch in, where it's the optimal area to touch. So yeah, definitely. And that's part of the reason why I train the way I train, because it has to be exact.
Well, now let's talk about that, the way you train. I mean, there's a lot of obviously different approaches to the bench, especially with the shirted benching. People now will tell you, now a lot of people, you see Big Iron does tons and tons of board presses with their shirts to different boards. They really don't seem to go off their chest very often. Jason Coker told me he almost never goes off his chest. It's always down to a one board. Westside really doesn't even get into the shirts, but a couple times, they're more just trying to build brute strength, and then the technique really comes later. I know you use a shirt, and you're not really a big believer in the boards with the shirt. You go down where the shirt locks up, and then you press up. How would you compare your approach that way to someone who's using boards, or why don't you use the boards? Why did you come up with that approach to training?
Well, it actually started originally when I first got into powerlifting, and not knowing much of anything really. I kind of caught on with a group of guys that were just in my local area that weren't really competing, but they had shirts, and I got interested in it and got myself a shirt. And these guys were all doing boards, and for them it was just because they just physically couldn't get the bar to their chest, you know.